Welcome to the fifth video in a series of videos on the Messianic Expectations in Acts 17. Let's take a context of Acts 17 and thereby for 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Now, this is a 12-part series on Messianic Expectations. That the first 6 parts look at Old Testament scriptures in Samuel, the Psalms, and Isaiah. The 7th and 8th part look at intertestamental books, the Psalm of Solomon and 1st Enoch. Both of these were written prior to the 1st century and impacted the 1st century. And finally, in parts 9 through 11, we will look at Second Temple people inside of Israel, and in part 12, we will look at a philosopher in Alexandria who was an apologist, but did not speak of Messianic expectations, even though Alexandria was a hotbed of Messianic expectations, and we'll discuss why. So let's dive into part 5, Psalm 10. The last of our Psalms that talks about God's actions on the behalf of the Messiah. Let's look at the Psalm again in English and then take a look at our Psalm in Greek. The Lord, and again in Hebrew, this is Yahweh, says to my Lord, and again that is not a Yahweh, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for my feet. The Lord, and again that's Yahweh, will stretch forth your strong scepter, meaning the Messianic King, saying, rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people will tear freely in the day of your power. In the holy array from the womb of the dawn, your youth are to you as the dew. The Lord Yahweh, again, has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. The Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings in the days of wrath. He will judge among the nations. He will fill them with corpses. He will shatter the chief men over a broad country. He will drook from the rook by the wayside. He will lift up his head. So let's look at it. Sit at my right hand until I make thine enemies a footstool, and the Lord will stretch forth his scepter from Israel. Let's look at that in Greek. The Lord Yahweh, again, Yahweh, La Amed, Amadah. Yeah. So, the Lord Yahweh, sit, shub, at my right hand until I make thine enemies a footstool. Now notice the Greek. He said, the Lord. Notice, again, how the verb either goes first or a key word. He said, the Lord, ho kurios, to the Lord. Now notice you will see, to my Lord, sit. And that's an imperative, at my right hand, as which, until I make, theo tus eriu tus hovlia potensu. Now notice, make. Till I make. So, again, in Psalm 110, the first verse is emphasizing that ho kurios is the Lord and tu kurios is my Lord, but it is two people. The Lord Yahweh, again, will stretch forth. Yahweh and Israel will stretch forth from Zion, saying, you rule. Now in Greek, you see a strong scepter of yours, stretch forth the Lord. Kyrios is the Lord God. And in Zion, imperative, you rule. Now, that's important in the midst of your enemies. This key says that the Yahweh is giving an imperative command to the king. Here, the last part we need to look at is thou art a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. Notice, Again, it starts with Yahweh, the Lord Yahweh, and in Greek, Kyrios, now has sworn, O Mosen, that's Hares path, and will not change his mind. Meta melethesatai, that's future passive. You are a priest. Su e, that's present indicative second person singular. Theus. Eston iones, that's forever. That's an idiom. Kat te tachin mechalisatech. Okay, and again, here's where you see God swearing by himself and of the concept of a priest aligned with the Messianic ruler that is a descendant of David. So, what do we find out? In the 5th verse, the Lord is at your right hand. Here, you are not finding the same Yahweh, but you do find Kyrios at your right hand, will shatter soon echesem, in the day of his wrath. So, you hear, the question is this Yahweh? Can we imply that? Is it the Lord who is the Messiah? That's a good question that often you'll need to dig into. Well, that's some of the both things we do know about Psalm 110, which is a familiar psalm with the concept of the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet, which you will see quoted in the New Testament. But there are some questions in here that were left unopened, or perhaps Paul finishes them as he works with Thessalonians. Do try to think through these things, and we'll come back with part 6 and look at familiar passages in Isaiah from 9, 11, and 60 that may also help to remind you where the Messianic hopes were in Acts 17. Thank you again, and I will be back with part 6.